Hi Robin, thanks for being here. So today we just discuss about few things. How does a life of a PhD student look like, and what do you do on a day-to-day basis? Or what if you have any suggestions for people who are planning to do a PhD, especially from the Netherlands, if they are planning to go abroad from India? So let's start with the first question. Uh, if you can introduce yourself in few sentences.
Yes, so my name is Robin Martens. I started doing a PhD at the Technical University of Eindhoven 4 years ago. I'm doing this in the research group Mechanics of Materials. It's part of mechanical engineering. We are developing different devices that can measure mechanical properties of ultra-thin devices. I first did my bachelor in biomedical engineering. I also continued with a master in biomedical engineering, and then I switched to a master in mechanical engineering, and that's how I ended up in this position. After my master, I looked at different PhD positions. Um, they offered me different projects, but this one was the most exciting one because I was really able to develop devices that will be used by different companies and that can improve the quality of different products.
So if we start from the beginning, growing up in the Netherlands, so why did you choose to do an engineering and why biomedical engineering?
And that is actually a very difficult question to answer because after my secondary school, I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
I wanted to study medicine, but I could not look at blood and I would faint.
Okay.
So I just started looking around, and I looked at very different studies, and we could go to the open days at the universities, and that's how I figured out that biomedical engineering is a good match for me because it was not only about engineering, but also a little bit about biology. But in the end, I figured out that I liked the engineering part more than the biology part, and that's how I ended up in mechanical engineering. So it was just going a lot to other universities, speaking what
Yeah.
students like, and you just get experience from other people if you talk with them, and that's how you choose your study. And here at the University of Eindhoven, it's really nice. You can also, while you are following a bachelor course, you can also follow bachelor courses from a different faculty. So while I was doing biomedical engineering, I could also follow courses from the physics department,
Yeah.
from the mathematics department, and I could really figure out what I liked. So what I did, I was following courses from mechanical engineering while I was doing my bachelor of biomedical, and that's how I found out that I really want to continue with mechanical engineering.
That is really interesting. Like for the viewers out there, if you're interested in something, try to like, as I said in last few podcasts, that just go talk to people, try to figure out if you are really interested in it. Try experiment. You will learn something. If you don't like it, you will at least find out that you do not like it. So do that. And the second question. So after your masters, the first masters and second masters, why did you choose to do a PhD? Were you like really interested in academics, or you thought, I don't know to work yet, or you just found a really good project? Why the PhD?
It's always difficult to say why you want to do a PhD, but if you do a PhD, you really have the time to go into details.
Yeah.
So you really get the opportunity to learn more about a specific topic. In industry, sometimes this can also be the case, but it's more focused on the result. Here you can really do the research, and sometimes you develop something and will not work, but you have still learned a lot from that. That's a good result from for the university. For industry, this would of course not be a good result if it's not working. So here it's more like you are still studying, and you can really develop yourself to become a good researcher.
Yeah.
And that's what I like. So it's 4 years of hard working in which you will learn a lot about a certain topic, and that's what I liked about it.
So about the learnings in PhD, other than the technical part, what the non-technical skills you learned? like the presentation skills, or if you have some things in mind.
Yeah, in our group, it's normal that you need to give a lot of presentations. Sometimes you also need to defend your work to the company that's paying your PhD, but that's also part of your PhD. But you are also supervising students. So in my case, I've been supervising 14 students, and every student is different. And you want your students to deliver a certain part. So you need to be smart how you set up a project like this. If it is too difficult, they cannot finish it, and you will not get any result, and it will take you a lot of time. If it is too easy, the student will not be motivated, and maybe you will also not like the result. So it's quite difficult to find a good project for your students. So what I normally do, I have an idea about a project, and then I let the student work on it. And while the student is working on it, we can change the project on the go and find a good match for the student. But besides, we are also manufacturing all these devices that we are building. So we also need to work a lot together with industries that can develop the devices. And then we also need to think about money. So how much is it worth? Can we design it in a better way, make it cheaper, and things like that?
So how does usually a PhD research or PhD funding goes here in Netherlands, or in general in Europe? Like, you get funding from the government or the company. How do you approach it?
So in the Netherlands, it's quite simple. You apply for a PhD position, and your supervisor has already arranged everything. So we don't need to we don't need to arrange the subsidy or grant ourselves to apply for the PhD. And the grant has already been arranged by your supervisor.
And how did you get the PhD? Like, what is the procedure to apply for a PhD? Even if you have, means, for your case, I guess you were already aware of what is going on and you knew the professors. But if someone is coming from another university, or let's say another country.
Yeah, actually, I did my master in a different research group. So I needed to follow the procedure that is normal for all other students not coming from this university. So I went to the website of the university, and I found this PhD position, and I applied for it. First, I needed to talk with the first supervisor of the project. Then I needed to talk with the second supervisor of my project. And for the third job interview, I talked with all the people, all the professors, associate professors, assistant professors in my group. And then they told me that I got the job. So I basically had 3 job interviews to get this position.
So what kind of interviews were there? Do you also have to like give a presentation on a master thesis or something? Like, what was it about?
So first I have sent them all the courses that I had followed before I could get the job interview. I've also sent them my CV. So what I've been doing, what my hobbies are, things like that, very simple. And my first job interview, I really liked it. It was basically about my master thesis. But my master thesis was in a field a little bit unknown by my supervisor. But we were going to discuss it. And he asked me some questions about my master thesis, just to see how I would react to his questions and if I really understood what I was doing, or that I was just filling in some numbers and running some simulations. So that way, my first supervisor got a good view of how I am. And then that process repeated, and they will ask questions about all the work that you have done, and from that they will base and they make a judgment. And during my third interview, they also asked me some questions about the project that I was going to do. So some general questions about about the knowledge that was needed for my project. And based on that, I got my position. But I also applied for a different PhD in Delft. That PhD position I thought was actually a little bit too simple for me. I would not get motivated to because I already knew how to solve it.
Yeah.
With this PhD position that I'm doing at the moment, no one knew how to solve it, and that's really exciting. So
Yeah.
you will do a lot of things, and you are not sure if it is going to work. It makes it difficult, but also a little bit more exciting.
That is really interesting. So, in your, what do you think that a ideal PhD is for a person who is planning to do a PhD? You might have some criteria for it if you can discuss it with.
I think a PhD can be very general. So if we look in the building that we are sitting at
Yeah.
the moment, we have biomedical engineers and mechanical engineers doing a PhD, and every PhD is completely different. So in my case, we are developing devices. Other people are only testing out
Yeah.
devices. Some people are only doing research in hospitals. So it can be a lot can go on. So it's difficult to say.
And what factors does affect your work? Like there is this one saying, especially I heard in India, that for your PhD, your guide, it matters a lot. Like he decides how your PhD will be, how your experience will turn out. So what factors do you think are important during your PhD?
I think that's true because if you're working on something, you want you can spend a lot of time on a certain topic. And then if your supervisor will say all the time, yeah, that's good, and he doesn't understand what you are
Yeah.
doing, then you don't get the certification from it. And you don't get motivated anymore. So it's really nice if you explain something to your supervisor and he understands what you are doing. And you also get this motivation. And he can also push you in the correct direction, because what could happen if you have a supervisor that doesn't know what's going on? After 4 years, you will publish your work, or maybe even earlier, and then people will tell you, why didn't you do it this way? Or why didn't you do it this way? So a good guide is important, and he can also see if something is not going like it should.
Yeah.
He can change it and make sure that you will go in correct direction.
And what motivates you to get up every day out of a bed and come here and do whatever you're doing, the research, the design part? What motivates you?
Yeah, I think in my project, I really like that there are so many unknowns, and by building these devices, we can just test it and we can come up with a theory. So it's basically like there's something we don't understand, and by building something, we are able to understand it. So every time that I'm going to design something, I know I will design it and I will find a solution to what I did not understand beforehand. So that's the thing that I like learning things that you don't understand before.
And how has been your experience till now in your PhD? Does it get lonely sometimes? What kind of work pressure do you feel? How does it affect your personal life as well? What kind of personal time you get?
I think it's not lonely because you have a lot of colleagues.
Yeah.
So, but my colleagues are working on a different project. So in my project, there's no one else working on it, but I have a lot of master students and bachelor students that I'm supervising. So at the moment, I have 3 students that I'm supervising. And with those students, you can really go into detail and discuss the project. So that's also nice. And I have 2 weekly supervisors, 1 monthly supervisor. We are building these devices. So to build these devices, we need people to manufacture it. With those people, I speak a lot. So it's never lonely. Work pressure. You want to finish your devices, and if you have students, you are also responsible that it will go for them smoothly. So sometimes you have these deadlines, but I like it, and I think if you like something, you also enjoy doing it, and you don't feel the work pressure. And I think time management is important. So no one can work 12 hours per day efficiently. So if you plan it correctly, you can work really hard and still have time for hobbies.
Nice. And I guess since it is a job here, a PhD, it's not that like you're studying, but on paper you are doing a job. So
Yeah.
you also have like fixed hours and fixed salary. I guess that helps as well.
Yeah, there's an agreement from
Yeah.
all universities. So if you go to the internet, you can find the salary of all PhD students. It's all fixed for all PhD students in the Netherlands doing a technical PhD. Yeah, the hours are fixed, but no one is only working
Yeah.
38 hours per week. I think most PhD students work more than that. But it's also furnished your project. So what you put in, you also get out
Yeah.
somewhere. Um,
And what have you learned in your, not just in your PhD, but in your whole academic life? It's like some tips if you would like to give to the students out there or people who are doing their PhD right now, trying to start a PhD.
if you want to achieve something, you always need to sacrifice
Yeah.
something. Um, so if you really want to become good at something, you need to spend time on it. And sometimes you can, for example, not go to every party every week, or yeah, you always make a sacrifice. So if you want to achieve something and you want to be really good in it, you cannot do something else
Yeah.
that will also take a lot of time. I think that's the thing that you will learn.
Okay, and so it has been a bit serious discussion. Let's move on to some fun part. So, other than your PhD, what kind of hobbies are you following? How do you spend your free time?
So what I liked when I started with my PhD, I moved to Eindhoven. And the first week, I already noticed that I get a little bit bored. So I wanted to do some sports. So I started with playing water polo.
Yeah.
So the first week, when I moved to Eindhoven, I started playing water polo. But then I still had some time to do some other sports. So you can see, even as a PhD
Yeah.
student, you still have time to do sports. So the next week, I also continued with gymnastics. And that's what I did first 2 years. And then here in Eindhoven, we have a very nice sports center. For only 100 euros per year, you can do all these sports. And I tried out a lot of different sports. And I just found some sports that I really like.
Yeah.
And with those sports, it's also combined with a sport association. From some sports, I also joined the commissions, helping to organize parties, helping to run the association. And besides that, we also have a nice office in which a lot of PhD students are sitting together. For that one, we also organize nice activities like a barbecue outside, or we go to an escape room, or we play virtual reality games. Like all these simple things, it's making the PhD more fun.
And do you have any advice for the people who are figuring out if after their masters if they should do a PhD or not? How can they figure out if they should do a PhD or if they have found the right project?
How we in this technical field normally select PhD students is to see if they can work independently, if they really want to understand what is going on. So if I give you a problem, I want to I want to know that you can solve the problem
Yeah.
independently. So you should be able to think about it and come up with a strategy to solve it. So you need to. Some people can only run simulations. All people can really understand it. So you need to have this understanding of what is going on. You really need to be. As I think it's difficult to say when you are suitable for a PhD, but I think if you really want to understand what's going on, then a PhD is a good thing for
Okay,
you.
so you must have an analytical brain if you want to do a PhD.
Yeah, it also depends on the PhD
Yeah.
project. So there are so many PhD projects. If you're not that good analytically, maybe you can look for a PhD that's less analytically,
Yeah.
that's more experimental involved. But I think the most important thing is to find a PhD project that suits you, and don't do anything that you think is not
Yeah.
suited for you, only to do a PhD. So if you cannot find a PhD that suits you, you better don't do it, because it's a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah, that's a big commitment. At least 4 years of work focusing on some single project. That is something really important if you're planning to do a PhD, I guess. So thanks for being here. Thanks for all the answers, all the advice for me and for the people out there. And if you have any other questions for the people, the viewers, feel free to comment down in the comment section, and probably we can invite Robin again, or he can help me answer in the comments as well. Thanks, Robin.
Yes, thanks.